Hello and welcome to KAUST Live. Today we're talking with Amelie de Marsily. She is the Enterprise Services Delivery Lead at Cisco, and she is here at KAUST as part of the KAUST IT Summit. We're bringing you inside the KAUST IT Summit for today and tomorrow to talk to some of the experts that are here for their keynote speeches and workshops and things. So, Amelie, thank you for joining us, and I just wanted to ask your title name. Give me a sense for Emir and the rest of the title. What does that all mean?
Yes, thank you, Nicholas, and thank you for inviting me and to the event. It's been a great day so far. So my role within Cisco is to take care of services delivery, and so I focus on the enterprise and public sector segments. And for EMEA stands for Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Russia. And so what we do is we deliver the services that the sales team sell across all of our technologies. And my team is composed of engineers, which we call architects, because they're very deep knowledge around the many architectures of Cisco positions, and also delivery managers and program or project managers.
Okay. So you've been with Cisco since 2001, I believe. Talk a little bit about the evolution, your path in the company.
So I have an unusual path in terms of career development. I started as a lawyer, hired in 2001, and a few years later I picked up the management of the European team. And after that I picked up the management of the EMEA legal team. And one day one of our leaders knocked on my door and said, would you like to come and work on my team? And his responsibility was services delivery for EMEA. And so I thought about it long and hard, a big career change because I was managing the legal department for the whole of EMEA. And I thought, what do I do? Do I try and take a professional risk, or do I stay where I'm in my comfort zone? And I decided to try something new and take a professional risk. I think the leader who proposed this job to me also took some risk about bringing someone very different on board. And within 12 months of working with him, he moved on to another role in a new segment, and I picked up the segment for enterprise and public sector for EMEA, while he took a worldwide responsibility. So I've been in this role for about 2.5 years, going on 3, and I've had an amazing time, amazing learning opportunity, and the ability to build a team from scratch and choose the people that I've worked with, and really start a very exciting new adventure and growing the business, which is why I was hired in the first place.
Very good. So how do you feel your legal training, how did moving from being in-house counsel to your current position, talk a little bit more about how law sort of prepared you for that?
Well, I think first of all, there are actually similarities between engineers and lawyers as how they think. It's very structured, and so ability to understand a situation, to manage complexity is something that lawyers and engineers definitely have in common. And so I think there were more similarities than I thought before I took the role. And then I think just critical thinking, making decisions, listening to different viewpoints, and capability to listen is important as you go and help customers transform, which is what we do as an organization today, and move into this digitized world. So I would say, yeah, I wasn't prepared, and I certainly didn't think I was going to do this job when I started in the company. But I think also I would say the connections that I made in my role as a lawyer for the company also helped me getting to know the people I worked with different hat on further down my career.
Delivery services lead, what kinds of rooms does that put you in? Where is your day-to-day work? Are you traveling a lot to meet different clients? Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. So because my region is quite wide, what I do is I travel around and meet with CIOs mostly, and IT departments, of course, and see how we can help them essentially build their digitization story. How do you transform into this digital world? And this impacts any segment of the business, whether you sit in utilities or you're in the financial sector, in manufacturing. The digital world is putting pressure on these businesses to reinvent themselves and not be taken into a spiral of not being able to address the needs of the customers. And so my conversations are now more and more going into the business, so meeting with boards of the companies as well, and in some cases CEOs, where we talk about what the needs are, for instance, of cloud, or if you're in the financial services, for instance, or talking about IoT as you go into manufacturing, how do you change that? So definitely the conversations now, and this I guess I'm lucky in that sense because I don't have a strong technical background. I do have lots of smart technical architects on my team, but it's a lot about a business conversation, and that's why I see myself as a business leader, because that's what we're trying to do, is to help businesses become more successful and transform, because that's an imperative for this digital world.
You spoke of IoT, which is the Internet of Things. So how does IoT, how does that expose, what are the new legal pitfalls and opportunities and things? You must come at it from this perspective, risk management, risk assessment, those sort of things. Can you talk a little bit about the Internet of Things and what you're seeing in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, just to say, I try to forget that I'm a lawyer, because there are very qualified lawyers in the company right now doing that job, so I don't want to overstep my responsibility.
Sure.
But it's true that I think you're right by pointing out that there are risks attached to IoT. There's lots of opportunities as well. I think security is obviously very topical today in the world and also in the kingdom. So the security risks that are posed by IoT devices and sensors that will be pervasive and enable companies to understand what's going on and get this big data, which is what we talk about, and run the analytics. I think it was discussed today at the conference about the availability of data, but actually only being valuable if you're able to analyze it and turn it into a service, or turn it into a business that can be preemptive with their consumers or with their customers. So I think IoT is the next big wave of how the digital world is being implemented, really.
You spoke at a Women in Technology panel earlier today, and you talked a little bit about Cisco being a big developer of the careers of women. Talk a little bit about that. I think there's a specific program that you have even.
Yes, absolutely, and unfortunately I missed that program. It was created after I was eligible for it. But what we have developed is a program called JUMP, and it's for the emerging leaders within the organization, and it's a purely female program. That's essentially divided into 3 pieces over 3 or 4 months. The first one is to drive self-awareness, which because if you want to be a leader, you need to be more self-aware. So it gives a couple of tools to the young women to understand themselves and the impact that they have. Then there is a second focus on how do you build leadership and what is Cisco's approach to leadership. And we have for that an acronym which is called C-LEAD, but it's about collaboration, it's about learning, it's about execution, it's about accelerating and disrupting. So those are the framework for leadership that Cisco has developed, and the women will learn how to adapt and how to measure themselves against those requirements of leadership. And then finally, the last one, it really helps them position themselves, and they teaches them communication skills, how to improve their gravitas as well, as they go back into the business and learn really the insides of the business that they're running.
And of course, academia is the place where most, if not all, of these women are coming from. What role, can you talk a little bit about the role you see academia playing in that development as well?
Well, I think academia plays a critical role because they need to attract women into the technology world, whether it's directly, being in the data center working, or thinking about how you manage big data and how you produce analytics. So I think there's a very wide range of roles that are very exciting in IT, and I think academia needs to create those curriculums that will address those needs of the digital world, and therefore attracting women and making them feel that they're really fulfilling their career aspirations through these curriculums, I think, is a critical role for academia. I think from my perspective, partnerships between academia and companies like Cisco is very important. So we do we spend a lot of time recruiting associates in key universities, and we do fairs where we try and move from academia, the academic curriculum, into the business world. But I actually think we should maybe do that a bit earlier on even, and develop these partnerships where the companies and academia work closer together.
Can you talk a little bit about the challenges for IT infrastructure, these different cloud computing solutions? Talk a little bit about the challenges to implementing them in the different regions that you're working in, Europe, Middle East in particular, I would say.
Yeah, I think there is one commonality. I'll start with the commonalities, which is especially the older the business is, the more they have infrastructure that is not helping them move into the digital world. And therefore, the concept is being developed of bimodal IT. So one IT infrastructure that supports the legacy, if you like, and then another IT infrastructure that supports the new needs of cloud, precisely, and creating these platforms that will capture the data that is captured from the sensors and go into the data center, are stored and analyzed. And so that, I would say, is a commonality pretty much everywhere in all the businesses that have existed for a while and have had IT infrastructure that is now not enabling the business of tomorrow. So depending on the I would say, the age of the company, the situation will be similar. My experience in particular in the Middle East has been that because some companies are quite new, therefore there's been a lot of implementation of bleeding edge technology. In fact, what we call greenfield implementation of new technology, and that creates huge opportunities that companies that will have to transform, which we call brownfield, struggle much more because the transition is much more painful. So the advantage of this region sometimes is that the implementation can start immediately with the best in class that there is, and therefore have a competitive advantage compared to older companies that have to transition and pay for continue to support the legacy before they can invest in the new.
So you're saying, in a way, they get to leapfrog over some of these other areas.
Absolutely.
That's
and I think what's interesting for Cisco, and I had a customer meeting earlier this week when I arrived in the region, where precisely we implemented bleeding edge technology, and now we want to continue to partner to say, okay, now this is 2 years old. You can think 2 years goes past really fast, but there is a certain need to continue to evolve and partner with companies, IT companies like us, to help. What do we do with this, state-of-the-art infrastructure? How do we make it profitable? How do we turn IT into from a cost center to a profit center? And those conversations are absolutely needed, even when you do implement bleeding-edge technology.
Right. As you look 5-10 years in the future, and obviously that's always the big question. What does the future hold? What do you think the future holds? Even in particular for your Middle Eastern clients, what do you think they're going to be moving into as they get to leapfrog some of these brownfield challenges, as you say?
So there's many things. Of course, this is a very wide question, but let me perhaps two things come to mind. The first one is the businesses that are today might not be the same as the ones that we thought they would be. So the transformation of, even if you think of Nike, make running shoes and sportswear, they actually see themselves in many cases as a data company. In fact, you see that they retrieve data on people doing sports. So what is the mainstream of their business? Is it doing sports gear, or is it actually to have very critical data about people who do sports? And so that transformation of where the digital world is pushing them to monetize new ways of information that they have about users of their sportswear, that I think that transformation is so critical that it may happen to any business that thinks that they're comfortable, but actually their business will look completely different. And if you think you can apply it to manufacturing, you could apply it to automotive. You think about how, again, very talked about, but Uber, Airbnb, Uber doesn't own any car and they do taxi service. Airbnb doesn't own any property and they're the biggest rental property business in the world. Again, I could repeat that and again and again. So that's the first thing that I think I'm seeing. And then the other one is is about artificial intelligence and self-learning networks. The driverless car is the next one. How is that artificial intelligence going to become much more pervasive and remove existing jobs but create new opportunities? I think this is what the challenge is for businesses and for academia, just as well, to think about what are the new curriculums that are needed to prepare students for these new requirements, which we might not even imagine today.
Yeah. So institutions such as KAUST, how are they going to harness those sorts of things to support research, to support the research of tomorrow that we don't even know about yet? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think it's about recruiting, talented students with the skills that will help to, think and innovate. I think academia and university as a center of innovation, I think, is critical. I also believe that having strong partnerships with the industry, and it doesn't necessarily have to be only technology companies like Cisco, but probably, partnering as well from a technology focus with companies that might not be technology companies in different segments like manufacturing or even sportswear. So those are the things that I can think of. And then the third one, which is more of something I'm particularly interested in, is implementing new ways of running organizations. And we spent some time in the work group that I was on today thinking about, is there a new way of, even a university, a company can be run in a more efficient and more geared towards innovation and harnessing the collective intelligence of the students. Imagine what you have here is an incredible pool of collective intelligence. Is there a way of making more of that than what we have today? And that applies for academia, applies also for organizations. And I'm very interested in that. How can we adapt to this 21st century that we're just starting into, if we think about it? And I think there's so much more for us to invent and discover. Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. Well, thank you so much for coming and sitting down with us. Much
pleasure.
Appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your time at KAUST and the rest of the IT Summit, and all the best to you.
Thank you very much, Nicholas, for listening.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.